In Mundus, in the mortal vale, people did not think of the world as layered or distant. They thought of it as close, heavy, and demanding. The valley was not a bad place to live, but it was unforgiving. Crops grew, but only if planted on time. Animals lasted, but only if winter feed was measured carefully. Nothing here failed all at once. When things went wrong, they did so slowly. First a shortfall, then another. Then someone did not make it through the winter, and their field lay untouched the following spring. Most valleys could survive a bad year. This one could survive one, but not two close together. Every decade or so, the same things happened. A late frost, a summer that dried out too fast, a sickness that moved through livestock. Each event alone was survivable. Together, they meant that some people did not recover. Families packed what they could and left. Others stayed and buried their dead. Skills vanished when the last person who knew them failed to return in the spring. Recovery always took longer than expected. Far beyond the valley, beyond weather, beyond memory, beyond anything the people below could imagine, a reflective being noticed the repetition. It did not perceive people. It did not register hunger, grief, or names. What it perceived were outcomes. Effort spent, stability failing to hold, loss returning again and again to the same place. From its perspective, this region absorbed more work than it returned. The pattern was simple. This part of the world kept breaking down faster than comparable ones. The being did not ask why in any human sense. It asked where the pattern failed, and the failure appeared consistent. When cooperation loosened, losses deepened. When coordination tightened, fewer lives were lost. The land itself remained workable. What varied was how reliably its inhabitants acted together. From that narrow view, the conclusion followed easily. If stability depended on coordination, then coordination needed to matter more. So the being made a minor adjustment. It did not change the soil. It did not alter the weather. It did not introduce new hardship. Instead, it altered what mistakes were allowed to pass without consequence. A missed planting no longer affected only one household. Wasted grain began to show up as shortages elsewhere. Hoarding made neighboring stores fail sooner. Carelessness reached further than it used to. Errors that once remained private now traveled. From the being's perspective, this was correction, and nothing more. Pressure applied where inconsistency had been observed. Then it withdrew its attention. The pattern no longer required focus. Down in the valley, no one felt a design. They felt the world grow stricter. Old habits that once worked stopped working. A family cutting corners survived 1 year, but not the next. Someone keeping extra grain found themselves blamed when another household went hungry. Choices that had once been survivable became dangerous faster than people expected. They argued about it. "The land's changed," someone said. "No," another answered. "We have." After a lean winter, conversations shifted. People spoke less about weather and more about behavior, about who stored enough, about who rested when they should have worked, about who took more than their share. The word slip entered common speech, vague enough to apply to anyone. An elder said, "This valley doesn't forgive mistakes the way others do." Another replied, "It never did. We just got away with more before." Rules hardened before anyone called them rules. Grain was gathered together instead of kept apart. Work began earlier. Certain foods stopped appearing during lean months. When asked why, people said it's safer this way, or this is how our parents survived. One evening, someone said, half joking, "The valley remembers." No one laughed. Not because it was true, but because it explained too much too easily. Soon people spoke as if something noticed outcomes, not thoughts, not prayers, results. Waste seemed to carry consequences beyond the household. Carelessness spread faster than patience ever had. Stories followed. There were ancestors who endured because they were strict with themselves, others who relaxed in good years and were not spoken of afterward. Children learned these stories alongside instructions. Don't waste, don't delay, don't assume tomorrow will forgive you. A name emerged slowly, without ceremony. The Watcher. Not a god with demands, no voices, no signs, just something inferred from consequence. The Watcher did not need praise, it needed steadiness. Festivals changed, a short fast before planting, uncomfortable, survivable. Songs formed around preparation, counting stores, checking tools, watching one another's hands. None of this felt extreme, it felt necessary. When bad years came, people said someone had slipped. When good years followed, they said discipline had held. When careful families still suffered, explanations multiplied. The watcher tested resolve, or balanced debts no one could see, or counted effort more than outcome. No explanation replaced another. They accumulated. What mattered was that people kept planting, kept storing, kept working even when fear suggested staying home. The valley stayed inhabited. Later generations grew up knowing only the rules, not the reasons. They fasted because it was tradition. They shared grain because that was how it was done. When asked why, they said, because it works, or because not doing it feels dangerous. Fewer people remembered winters that truly killed. The watcher remained anyway. Its stories softened in some mouths and sharpened in others, but the habit stayed. People still counted stores twice. They still spoke carefully during lean seasons. They still warned children that waste was noticed, even if they no longer agreed by whom. The mistake was small. A pattern read too simply. A response shaped around behavior, because behavior was easier to measure than circumstance. But once the belief formed, it carried weight. And because it carried weight, people built their lives around it. In the mortal veil, this is how myths take hold. They don't have to be true. They take hold because once they made survival possible, and no one dares test what happens if they let go.